Hey, you guys. All right. So the narrator, Michelle, is trying to write a memoir, but all her friends are pissed at her. Nobody wants her to write about them. Her girlfriend's name is Persephone. Their cat's name is Deborah. Let's go. Well, write fiction then, Persephone suggested. Make stuff up. Challenge yourself. Michelle resented Persephone for implying that writing about one's own life wasn't a challenge, but the implication had its resonance. Michelle had tried to write fiction, and it was hard. It overwhelmed her. And so she retreated to another story about sex she had in a queer bar bathroom. The story was a little weak. How many stories could one write about having sex in a restroom? But it had an ease Michelle enjoyed. She didn't like when things were difficult. She decided she would accept a sort of challenge, the challenge of writing about her own life without implicating anyone else in the narrative. She would begin with herself, smoking crack in a van, alone, so as not to stomp on anyone's right to privacy. Her friend's right to smoke crack with a recent ex-convict, the ex-convict's right to procure crack cocaine for a bunch of dykes and then make out with them. Everyone's inalienable rights would be upheld within the text of Michelle's book. She would write only about herself, and she would make it universal. Michelle prayed to God, electricity, and her computer to please help her write another book. She had written 2 already. Why was it so hard? In most occupations, the tasks become easier with practice. The worker grows confident. Michelle thought of her nurse mother, able to insert a catheter, administer a shot, do her nursely duties with a swiftness and elan her patients were grateful for. I had to push a woman's rectum in, she told Michelle on a recent phone call. What are you talking about? Michelle asked, terrified to learn. Each woman was in her respective kitchen, smoking her respective cigarettes. Her rectum fell out and I pushed it back in, Michelle's mother repeated. There was a stiff pride in her voice. She knew she had been brave, had accepted an experience few would be able to handle. Michelle could hear her take a dry drag off her cigarette, and it inspired Michelle to do the same. I still don't understand what you're talking about, Michelle said, fearing her mother was trying to dramatically draw the story out. She stubbed out her Camel in the empty ashtray, then flung it out the window. Michelle had to keep the ashtray free of butts, lest Deborah the cat eat them. It was the most disturbing thing Michelle had ever seen, watching the cat gnaw the mushed end of a cigarette, the filter rich with nicotine. It made her gag. It was worse even than thinking of her mother replacing someone's rectum, if only because that was so hard to comprehend. She strained and it fell out, Barbara said. She's an old lady. She's been there since, I don't know, before I started. 30, 40 years she's lived there. I still don't understand how her rectum fell out, Michelle maintained. How a rectum falls out. A rectum is a hole. How does a hole fall out of something? A hole is nothing. It's negative. It's like... Michelle waved away her initial comparison of her own vagina. It's like you're telling me someone's nostril fell out and you pushed it back in. It's negative space. Please tell me what you mean. Michelle shook a pack of her cigarettes on the table and lit up a fresh one. Her mother heard the click of the lighter, the familiar crackle. You smoking? She asked, alarmed. When'd you start smoking again? I thought you quit. Are you stressed out? Am I stressing you out? Barbara's voice was thick with the accent of her region. There were no R's. The words banged into each other awkwardly, like people not paying attention to their movements on a crowded street. You know, Michelle said airily, I smoke, I stop, I smoke, I stop. You're lucky, Barbara said wistfully. I wish I could pick him up and put him down. She heard the familiar click and crackle, a smoker lighting up on the other side of the country. They each exhaled into their telephones. Anyway, the rectum. You don't understand biology, Mom said. The rectum, the muscles around the hole, you strain it from, pushing too hard. It can fall out of the body. Michelle was glad to have a strong mind, one not prone to hypochondria, germophobia, or anxiety in general. Being raised by a nurse meant you were privy to all the tragedies that could befall a body. As a girl, Michelle would pore through her mother's nursing school textbooks. Terrible rashes sprawling across skin like a map. Parasites, slender monsters that could live inside your body. Athlete's foot taken to extremes, cleft palates, birth defects, diseases of the eyeballs and the gums, mouth cancer, elephantitis of the gonads, hemorrhoids the size of apricots hung from the anus as if from a tree. Michelle's sister couldn't look at them. She had an anxiety disorder, but young Michelle enjoyed them. There was something so unreal about them, so extreme. But the older one becomes, the more it occurs to you that perhaps all these things are inevitable. Michelle felt less welcoming to the idea that one can lose one's rectum. Your body is destined to fall apart. Why not in this manner? Why not your rectum falling out of your rectum? Does the rectum fall out of itself? Michelle still couldn't wrap her mind around it. She imagined a long pink tube with a winking hole at the end sliding from a body, like a grizzly penis or one of those water snake balloon toys kids give hand jobs to. She shuddered. The CNAs were freaking out about it, Barbara said. Oh, call the doctor, call the doctor. I said, for what? what? I'll do it. I just put on some gloves and pushed it back inside. She was fine, the poor thing. That's amazing, Michelle said. You are amazing. I hope you get a raise for that. Thanks.